George Casey.
Rico Walker.
Pleasure to meet you again.
Yes, sir.
Second part of our Think and Grow Rich series. I'm really excited about it. We're talking about desire. This book called Think and Grow Rich. In the first part, we talked about thoughts of things, and we cover a lot of things of how a person can start with their mind planting a seed and having expectation and it becoming a reality. Today we'll be talking about desire and how the person can start with desire and how that desire, standing by it, it becomes a reality. Anything you want to talk about when it comes with Edward C. Barnes, with Helen Keller, Beethoven, Florence Chadwick, or anything about Thomas Edison or the Wright brothers, or how they took desire and they transformed it into reality. Anything about those individuals?
Absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about Florence Chadwick. Florence Chadwick was a woman swimmer back in 1952. And, she set out one day, it's July 4th, 1952, she set out to swim a 26-mile stretch between Catalina Island and the coast of California. Now, what happened was it was a really foggy day. This particular day started off, it was a very foggy day, but she decided to go out anyway. And she was flanked, by a couple of boats. One had her mother and her trainer in it. Well, anyway, about 15 hours. Now, imagine swimming 15 hours. Now, 15 hours into the trip or into the swim, she was exhausted. And she relayed this message to her mother and her trainer.
Wow.
And basically what they did was they gave her confidence. Basically you can do it, gave her that boost of confidence. And she said, you know what, okay, I'll go a little further. So she decides to swim a little further, and this time she gets tired again. And she asked to be taken out of the water. So, they had no choice at this time but to take her out of the water. But what happened was, as she got onto the boat, the fog began to lift. And she saw that her destination was only a mile or less than a mile ahead of her.
Wow.
And she was interviewed the next day, and she said a peculiar thing. She said, I could have made it if only I've seen the final destination. I could have made it if only if I could have seen it. I could have made it. And see, what's important with desire, you have to be able to always keep that picture in your mind. So
absolutely.
Definitely.
What's so amazing, George? A lot of people may be wondering what they have to do with, Think and Grow Rich, because that person wasn't in the chapter. But it has a lot to do with chapter 2 and what we're talking about desire. Yeah. Because in one side, you can have the desire and you can keep it in front of you every day. Think of yourself as that, what you are, or you can get started and lose sight of that desire and the end result. All that effort that you put into it, you quit. So we kind of want to talk about two phases. How Edward C. Barnes, how the Wright brothers, how Beethoven, how Thomas Edison took that desire and stood by that desire, and it became a manifestation, not taking that energy and the end result of it, lose sight of it and quit. Let's start talking about Edward C. Barnes.
Let's talk about this. First of all, we gotta let the people know. I like to let the people stay informed. We're not talking about just any old kind of desire. We're not talking about an average desire or a normal desire. We're talking about a burning desire, a desire that's inside of you. Inside of you. It was an artist, Michelangelo. He created the statue of David. And they asked him, how did you create this statue? He said, the statue already existed in a piece of the marble. I only had to chip away the pieces that didn't belong.
Wow.
And see, that's with us. We're perfectly made, perfectly and beautifully made. We're made for greatness. But sometimes we have to do as Michelangelo did. We have to chip away those pieces that don't belong. Absolutely. So we can see the full picture.
Absolutely. And you know what's so amazing? When Edward C. Barnes got off that railroad track in Orange, New Jersey, in everybody else's view, he was like a trans person, a tramp. Yeah, somebody that didn't have the clothes that everybody else had. Or the shoes.
Even Thomas Edison said he looked no more than like an average tramp. Basically.
Absolutely. But at the same time, in his mind's eye, he didn't care what his appearance. He knew what he wanted, and he said, I'm coming to put Thomas Edison on notice. Yes. I come to go He didn't care about the appearance. He had this burning desire. What you talking about? This desire that will keep you up at night.
Yes.
This desire that will wake you up in the morning time. This desire will, you just think about it constantly every single day, and eventually it will present itself an opportunity for it to happen. Anything else you want to talk about that barn story?
Let's look at that story just a little bit closer. We have to go back and let's review what we already know about him. Now he set out not having any money in his pocket.
Absolutely.
So he basically had to hitchhike or get to New Jersey any kind of way he had. That was the first thing he had against him. The second thing he had against him, he had no idea, or he didn't know who, or he knew who he was because he had a desire to work for him.
Correct.
But he didn't know him personally.
Correct.
So he didn't know him personally, and he had no money in his pocket to get where he was going. But he said, I have this burning desire inside of me.
Wow.
I am going to go to New Jersey, and I'm going to work for Thomas Edison.
That's right.
And he burnt all of his bridges behind him. Once he left, he set out, he burnt all of his bridges behind him and said, you know what? There's no way I can turn back now. I have to make it. Wow. And see, that desire in him caused him to do that. And when he got there, he did get a job, but he didn't get the job that he wanted.
That's right.
And see, the average man would have said, okay, well, I'm here.
I don't want it.
I didn't get the position that I wanted. That's it.
Yep.
It took him 5 years to get the position that he wanted.
Wow.
He stuck around for 5 years because he had that burning desire. He said, I know what I'm going to do.
Wow.
I'm going to work for Thomas Edison.
You know what's so amazing, George? When I think about that story, the dream was no longer enough.
I don't know. No.
He wanted a memory. He wanted the physical manifestation of it. He didn't want it just playing out in his mind, because there have been some time in my life when I have dreamed something but never took the action behind the dream for it to happen. It got to a place where the dream was no longer enough, because he didn't have the money, like you just said, and also he didn't even know him as a relation, have no relationship with Thomas Edison. But at the same time, because that dream was there and he was willing to take some action, he didn't care what happened as long as he got there. Because when he got there, it said that he saw himself, he heard himself asking Mr. Edison for that one thing. And that one thing was to be a business associate of Edison, right?
Absolutely. And see, one thing about Napoleon Hill actually calls it, how does he say it? A definiteness of purpose.
Absolutely.
He calls it a definiteness of purpose. And a definiteness of purpose has 2 parts. A person has to, A, know what they want.
Correct.
You have to know what you want. And then second, you have to have the desire to get what you want.
Absolutely.
You know, one of the things I remember growing up as a kid, one of the things I love to do is put together a puzzle. And as I put together a puzzle, I had no idea where to start.
Wow.
I had no idea where to start. But by looking at the picture on the box, I had an idea. Now, all I have to do is make my picture look like the picture on the box. And so that's what happens with our desire. We see the picture. We know what we want. Once we know what we want, that desire starts to fill us until it becomes that burning desire.
Absolutely.
That nothing's going to stop me. Burning desire has no recollection or has no objection of failure. What is failure? A burning desire knows no failure.
That's right. It overcomes failure.
Absolutely.
The why, like we said in part 1, the why is bigger than the how.
Absolutely.
Right?
Definitely.
So it's just so amazing when I think about those stories, Edward C. Barnes. When I think about Thomas Edison, he wanted to have electricity go through a bulb like we have today. We can just turn on the switch and we can have light, electricity, right?
Yes.
But it took him 10,000 times for him to have success.
10,000, absolutely.
But sometimes people think failure is bad. Failure is not bad, because I believe each time he was learning a little bit.
Yes.
Each time that little nugget, I'm getting better, and eventually, boom, it happened. But because of that desire, he could have stopped at 5,000 times. Is that right?
5,001.
5,001.
Yeah.
He could have stopped at 8,000. Man, why am I doing this? But he was willing to stand by that goal until it happened. Anything about that story? Anything else?
Yeah, that's just that's an amazing story. One thing, another thing about desire. Sometimes people don't know what you want. You know, it's understandable. We set out in life, we don't know what we want. Sometimes in life it takes knowing what we don't want to do to know what we want to do. Absolutely. But eventually you still have to get to that point where you know what you have to do. And don't worry. The world is filled. It's a new world. Every time we wake up and see the world, it's a new world. And it's constantly growing. It's a constantly growing and constantly changing world. And this world that we live in, MARICO, is constantly looking for new ideas and new leadership and new books, new thoughts, new ways of thinking. This world is always looking for new. And we were just having a conversation earlier about, even about TVs and computers. Every 6 months or every year, you have a new model that comes out. But the whole concept of TV doesn't change. The whole concept of computers doesn't change. It only improves by 10%. So find something and improve on that idea by 10%.
Wow. You know what's so amazing? I started thinking about that because, let's go back a little bit to desire, then we're going to come back to that. I started thinking about, as you were talking, one of my desires was to have a great marriage. One of my desires always has been to have a great marriage. And when I saw out on it, it was some rocky moments in there because you have two people who are gelling together. Rocky moments, but at the same time, because that desire was a burning desire, I was willing to overcome those rocky moments to now beautiful marriage, just overflowing, becoming each time better and better. It's just so amazing when you started talking about a TV and the concept of, it changed just a little bit. All a person have to do is just pick a definite purpose, knowing what they want. Then it talked about in the book creating a plan. I guarantee when they made that TV, they created a blueprint, a plan, how they were going to build it, right? Then more than likely, then it talked about burning all the bridges. I'm going to build a great computer. I'm going to build a great marriage. I'm going to be a great lawyer. I'm going to be a great doctor. Whatever that definite purpose is, I'm going to be great at that. And I'm going to burn all the bridges because, in life, we can sometimes be doing this, sometimes we can be doing that, and never have success in any of it, right?
That's right.
But sometimes we have to burn those bridges, and third, be willing to stand by that goal until it manifests. Anything you want to say about that?
I'll say this, MARICO. When you have a definiteness of purpose, meaning you know what you want,
correct,
and you have that burning desire on the inside of you. You don't have to worry about the how. Remember, we talked about that as well. We don't have to worry about the how. And I'll give a story just came to me just a little while ago. And not too long, we just met not too long ago.
Correct.
But I already had this burning desire in me. I want to be a speaker. I want to empower people. That's one of my biggest goals and biggest aspirations. That's what burns on the inside of me. I want to empower. I got a company called Better Your Best. And I want everyone to better their best at all times. But going back to meeting you, MARICO, within a couple minutes of meeting you, we clicked.
Correct.
And I knew we were on the same page, and it was like that desire is just unfolding. It began to manifest itself. We began talking about Think and Grow Rich, and here we are now, doing a Think and Grow Rich story. So once you get the desire and you know what you want, the things in your life will start to fill. And you gave me a great point, and I say it every day. I say you have to keep the thing that you want in front of you. So every day before I go to sleep, and then when I wake up, and then throughout the day, I picked up on one of the affirmations that you gave me. I am worth $100,000 per month, and I love sharing it with those in need. I begin to say that when I wake up in the morning. Again, I begin to say it throughout the day. I begin to say it at night before I go to bed, and it's just I keep it in my mind at all times. And these things, like I said, are put in place.
Correct.
As the desire grows. You meet the people who are going to put you in the right circumstances. You have the right circumstances that fits your needs and wants.
Correct.
So once you have that knowing what you want, once you have that definiteness of purpose, that knowing what you want, and that desire, that burning desire inside, these things will be filled as well.
That made me think about Napoleon Hill and his son. Napoleon Hill had a desire. When once his baby was born, they told him that his son would never hear. He was going to be deaf. But
Definitely.
He never accepted that as a reality. He said, you know what? In my mind, my son is going to hear.
Absolutely.
So he began, once his son began to cooperate, planting the seed in his mind that he was going to hear. He was going to hear. And because this desire was such a burning desire, he was able to influence, transfer that desire into his son. That son of his, that desire became a lifelong, and boom, it happened because he was able to stand by it until it happened. It's just like you were saying about a quote that I like, and you said, MARICO, I like that quote, and it became a quote of yours, and it just resonates, as you said, because they're words, then they become feelings, then they become action, resources start to come, people start to come, and then situation, opportunity come, and it becomes reality because of our actions that we're taking. Anything you want to pick back or say on that?
Absolutely. Again, it's such a powerful concept. Such a powerful concept. Again, when we start to desire these things, we start to have ideas that come to us. We start to meet people. I was talking to my brother, and he was telling me about, as his son was growing up, he was telling me about, how he used to tell him all the time, "You're a genius. You're a genius." And this was even before, my little nephew didn't know what a genius was.
Correct.
But my brother would constantly tell him, "You're a genius. You're a genius." Transferring or placing that seed of desire into my nephew. So again, he didn't know what a genius was.
Wow.
And when he would be out playing with his friends, he would say, I'm a genius. His friends, they knew what genius was, but they would laugh at him because, how could you be a genius? But it turns out that he was a little more advanced than where he was supposed to be at the time. So planting that seed, it's a strong thing. Having that desire is a strong thing. So always plant that seed and always continue to fertilize that ground, water your seed. Be around the people that are gonna make your seed the best it can be.
Wow. So as we're closing this section, there's a couple things that the individual watching this video can do on transferring their dominating dream into reality. Number one, definite a purpose, right? Knowing what a person wants. In order for us to get together and put this out there, it had to been a dominating desire for us to get out of here and do it, because people could say, you know what, I don't like that video. People could say other things, but because we were willing to put ourselves out there, it had to start with a desire to put it out there. Desire, it had to be there. Then once that desire is there, people can start creating a plan. Because once that desire continues to soak in their mind, your subconscious mind will bring about ideas. And then you'll start creating plans for that thing to happen. Then I don't want you to have your hands in more than one thing. You gotta burn those bridges. You can't have your hands in multiple things. It was a multi-millionaire told me, a man who wears 2 watches don't know how to tell time. So I'm telling you, gotta burn those bridges, because in the book it talked about, in order to maintain a desire to win, you gotta burn those bridges. And last, stand by it until it manifests. Anything you want to leave the individual with before we close it?
You talked about us having a desire and sharing our desire with the people. Let's think about what happens if we don't share our desire, if we don't listen to that desire and it's burning in the inside of us. There's an author, Miles Monroe.
Wow.
And Miles Monroe, he talks about the wealthiest place in the world. And he talks about it's not in Saudi Arabia, it's not in West Indies, it's not in Africa.
Wow.
It's not too far from your house. He says the richest place on the planet is the graveyard.
Wow.
Now let's think about what would happen if people don't fulfill their desire. People like the Wright brothers, that now that since their desire was so strong, we have flight.
Wow.
Or let's look at Henry Ford. Because his desire was so long, it was so strong, he no longer wanted to go by horse-driven carriages. He said there got to be a better way. That burning desire turned into vehicle. The vehicles that we drive. So it's the books that we want to write, the songs that are in us. Don't die full.
Wow.
To live full, but die empty. Get those desires out of you. Yes.
So I really appreciate doing this video, which I'm really excited about talking about. The third section of this book is faith. And faith without works is dead.
Yeah, absolutely.
So don't take thoughts of things. Don't take desire, because when we go in and talk about faith, we're going to start talking about taking that faith, then taking it and applying some action, because nothing changed until energy is moving, is in motion. So really excited about it. Thank you for doing this video. I pray that they got something from it.
I hope so.
And until we meet again,
yes, sir.
On the third part, faith, God bless.
God bless.